Hi guys, well, same location as the last video. I've had a couple videos in mind that I wanted to do, so I just decided to do them back to back. Today I was going to talk to you about the reusable canning lids. I, for years, thought they only made Tattler. And these are the Tattler lids that I've been using. I've done a video on them. And one of my subscribers asked if I ever used the Harvest Guard and what I thought the differences were. So because of the canning supply shortage, I needed lids. I did order some Harvest Guard. Now this is my opinion. This is what I found. I've seen a couple other videos of the differences, so let's just go over what I have found. First of all, Tattler was, I think they started their company in Colorado back in the 70s. And when I started reading about the two companies, Tattler moved their company, and I'm sorry, I can't remember, up northeast somewhere, Michigan maybe, somewhere up in that neck of the woods. And that's where I always ordered, and that's when I called customer service whenever I had a problem. Someone mentioned Harvest Guard, so I looked them up. Harvest Guard is made in Colorado, where the original Tattlers were made. Then I got to researching both companies more, and it's the same name. So this is what I think. And I could call them and ask, I should. But I think that Tattler, whoever, some of the family moved up north somewhere and they kept the company going up there for whatever reason. And then some of the family opened it back up, or maybe it never did close, but I'd never seen the Harvest Guard. The instructions are almost exactly the same. The names of the people are the same last name. I don't think there's much difference at all, personally. This is the Tattler. This is the Harvest Guard. Now, the only difference that I can see ever so slight is the little lip, the ridge, might be a little bit thicker, maybe. But it is so slight, it's hardly noticeable. So we'll compare the lids. Here's the lids. They are identical. Compare them like this, identical. Harvest Guard ring, Tattler ring. The reason this is darker than this, I've used this many times. I haven't used this one yet. You compare them, someone said, oh, I think they're bigger around or smaller. They're identical. Thickness, they're identical. I personally just think it's part of the family moved up north, part of the family stayed over in Colorado. That's my own personal opinion. I couldn't find any difference in them. And I have used some of the Harvest Guards. They're no different than the Tattler. But I am going to go over again, and I'm going to show you how I do it. Because I don't really care for either method on either website, how they say to do it. This works best for me. I haven't had hardly any failed seals since I started doing it. Just going to use little pint jars. I get my rings hot, so they're good and pliable, and then I put them on the lid, and it just sets on like this. Now here's the difference. I'm going to move you down to the tabletop that I'm using and show you the difference between what I do and what the websites say. Okay, here's the jar that I just put the lid on. I think it's the Tattler company that says just to do this, screw your lid on lightly until your jar starts. Now it's going to slide around because of my countertop and it's empty. But just put it on until your jar starts to rotate. And sometimes, guys, when I would pick that up, the ring would come off. The Harvest Guard website says put one finger here very lightly and just screw the lid on. Of course, I'm not going to be able to do that, the ring, since I've got your... Put your finger here and then until it starts to rotate under your finger and then stop. Again, they were just falling off for me. So what I did is I would put them on, tighten them, finger tight, and then just back off. Between 1/8 and 1/4 of a turn. So they're still gonna, you've got to be able to let them breathe to vent. The lids will raise up and down. The metal lids do that too. But probably because of the thicker plastic and the rubber ring. But then when you take them out of the canner, tighten it down to finger tight and set it and let it set overnight like you always do. So again, same thing with the Tattler lid. It goes on. I put it on finger tight, and then I back it off just a bit. I haven't had near the failed seals. And while we're at it, let's just put a metal lid on. Now they say nowadays you don't need to boil these. Back in the olden days, you used to have to boil them, but they have changed the rubber seal. This is hardly nothing. Whereas the old ones, you could put your fingernail in and it would dent in very easily. Matter of fact, people reused them all the time because the rubber seal was pretty significant. But on a metal lid, same thing, you put it on and then you just finger tight. So again, the only difference is metal lid, you put on finger tight. Tattler lid, you don't, and when you take the metal lid out of the canner, you just set it over and let it set for overnight, or the 12 hours. Again, the Tattler lid, tighten down finger tight, and I just back off a little bit. Then when it comes out of the canner, then you tighten it down finger tight and let it set. I had planned to do these videos last summer, but didn't get around to it. But anyway, I've been very happy with my reusable lids. And the only time I don't use Tattler lids is if I think I'm going to give them away, give some of the food away. Those of you that sell your canned foods, you wouldn't want to use Tattlers. One of the websites say that you can use them indefinitely. The other one, I think it's a Harvest Guard that is a little bit more, they last longer. And the Harvest Guard also says that it keeps your food sealed longer than what, I think a metal lid usually says, what, 18 months, 12 to 18 months. Then you have to use the food. And the Harvest Guard website, I thought it said 5 years. Now, you look that up. I just checked their websites, and the Harvest Guard is canninglids.com, and the Tattler Lids website is reusablecanninglids.com, and it's out of Michigan. Colorado's my next door neighbor, and since I think they're essentially the same, and when I bought mine, the price was the same. I compared everything I could. The price was the same. Everything was the same. So that's just my personal opinion, and that's how I use them. So I would recommend that. Do you notice I say so, and a lot? Doesn't that drive you nuts? Anyway, there we go. Anyway, if you feel comfortable or want to try using reusable canning lids, the Tattler or the Harvest Guard, order a small package or see if you have a friend that has some that will let you borrow and experiment. There is a learning curve. It's just something different that we aren't used to in the past, but it's very easy once you get them figured out, and you're going to save a lot of money in the long run. If I remember correctly, now this is comparing the ball lids to Tattler, not like the Dollar General lids, but these were, the reusable canning lids, I believe, were 2.5 times higher per lid. But considering you use them, you know, I've used some of mine 10 times. I just use them over and over and over. I just wash them up good. I haven't thrown them in the dishwasher. I think you can, but I just wash them up good by hand because I always simmer them anyway before I can with them. So see if you are interested in using those. It's going to save you a lot of money. You know, tightwad here. Got to save money. The initial investment, as in any good canning supplies, can be just a little bit high, but once you've used it a couple of times, it's paid for itself, and after that, you're using free lids, and that's my favorite word. All right, guys, we'll talk later. Thanks for hanging with me.